which opens into the most beautiful, large, rosette-shaped bloom of glowing bright pink. I like to think this image describes Gert's life, that like the rose, Gertrude bloomed into a healthy individual who brightened any room or occasion with her presence. Nan, Gert's mother, trained and taught all her girls how to manage a household, cooking and baking, sewing and knitting, keeping busy and caring for others. Gertrude embodied that lifestyle, for her family was the keystone. As a young girl, Gert began to demonstrate a love of clothes and knitwear that lasted a lifetime. Once when asked if she needed a hanky to wipe her nose, she replied, "No, I've wiped it on my sweater." There's no accounting, actually, for stories that families retell, but that one gets told frequently. At early primary school, when Gert was small, she got herself in trouble. I'm sure it was the one and only time. She was told to sit under a desk as punishment, and she quietly refused. She was wearing a new dress, and her mother told her not to get it dirty. As the story goes, some paper was found upon which she could perch. I really can't imagine her getting into too much trouble, but she did cover for others, especially her sister, my mother Marian, whose name she often liked to draw out with emphasis. Marianne! Even back then, Gert loved to play on words, a practice that continued and had her laughing at her own jokes as much as others. A most endearing quality that marked Gert's laughter was the progression from chuckle to a laughing snort. That got others laughing even harder. It was infectious. Marian and Gert were inseparable, and even at an early age, she unfailingly supported her big sister. When young Marianne had organized a fundraising concert in the harbor, enlisting the support of their parents and securing use of a stage and space for the audience, even charging admission, Gertie stood up and performed. She whistled, "Springtime in the Rockies." Young Gert enjoyed sports, skating, tobogganing, skiing. She was not fiercely competitive, but she never backed down or gave up. Once during a snowball fight with the boy across the street, a Mackenzie lad, I think, he threw a corker and knocked out her front 2 teeth. There are photographs of Aunt Gert smiling and holding high a fish she had caught. She and Pauline swam the mile from Methodist Island to the cottage, Marian rowing the boat beside. More smiling pictures of Gert and her sisters with boys from the harbor playing tennis. Marian and Gert played tennis into their 70s. When Gert, never shying away from a good game, went in for a winning shot, only to go over on her ankle, breaking it and her wrist, and sadly hanging up the racket. She maintained her joy of competing, presenting a challenge at shuffleboard and more recently with beanbag toss and swatting an air-filled balloon around the living room. A devilish glint in her eye replaced by a gleam at winning. Gert had a strength of character, a quiet manner, and a healthy limit to what she would do, especially if being told to do something. Yet with this determination, her secret ingredient was to add an ounce of humor or a sprinkle of levity that diffused situations. After high school, Aunt Gert followed her sisters to Toronto and lived with them while she trained as a secretary. Once qualified, she went off to Crothers Limited, head office, where she met the dashing and humorous George Olew from the accounting department. He was the younger brother-in-law of the boss. That began a love affair, then a marriage, and eventually a family. Gert and George enjoyed sharing laughter and fun. Gert played the straight woman to George's antics and practical jokes. There are many key themes that weave their way through Gert's journey: family and friendship, food, drink, and laughter. She was fiercely proud of her two boys and grandsons. She extended family, the term family, to those she loved and welcomed to her home and table, such as nieces, nephews, their children, friends of Richard and John and their children, Eplets, Caswells, Olews, Crothers, the wider family group. Gert was attentive to people. She lived in and enjoyed the moment. She relished celebrations, large and small, baptisms, weddings, holidays, reunions, pleased to share in the happiness of others. She enjoyed weekdays and weekends too. Anytime loved ones would gather round the table of hospitality became a celebration. The door was always open, an extra chair available at the table. Ask anyone and they will recall a favorite meal or delicacy, generally ones we asked her to prepare time and time again. When the order was a draw between coconut cream and banana cream pie, Aunt Gert put a tinfoil strip divider down the middle and made both. Key lime pie was one of her favorites. Summers at Couchiching meant barbecues, shish kebab, corn on the cob, salads, and the cookie jar was always full. Wine or similar libation was also included in every gathering, a cheerful tipple. Add to that a good helping of ice cream, which was her lifetime passion, and a family tradition. Gert kept friends and acquaintances for life. The Harbor Girls, the yummy mummies of the coffee morning crowd in Don Mills and Willowdale, the Crothers office staff, Aurelia, Florida, and the extended circle beyond the family. Having learned early not to have idle hands, she was forever knitting, and many of us have benefited from her creations. Once she even knitted an entire dress for me. The picture on the back of the program that shows the three sisters sits in a frame on a side table in the living room. At night, when Gert passed it on the way to her bedroom, she would say to the sisters, "Come on, you two, get busy." This was said with merriment in her voice and a smile on her face, early family training and expectation that lasted. Gert was always supportive of me. I knew she would be there if I ever needed her, non-judgmental, giving, quiet support, even from a distance. She loved my daughter Skye as a granddaughter and was thrilled to welcome Rory and 4 stepdaughters into the ever-expanding circle. As it has been said, this marks the end of a generation of strong women. Like the Gertrude rose that responds to the natural change of the seasons, Aunt Gert, as she was known to so many, was the bright pink blossom that made us all smile. Aunt Gert always said I was the daughter she never had, and I lovingly called her my second mom. Years ago, I gave Gertrude a small plaque that still hangs on the wall in her home. When I first saw it, it reminded me of her. It seems to sum up the advice she would extend to me, to all of us. Laugh, cherish today, dream tomorrow. Cherish yesterday, dream tomorrow, and live today.
Sure, you'll hear more about it too, but it's obvious that Aunt Gert Olju was love, and she was supportive, and that's what made her so special to all of us and a rock to so many. And so this is our just little tribute to her. Perhaps love, it's like a resting place. It's shelter from a storm. It exists to give you comfort. It's there to keep you warm. In your times of trouble, when you are most alone, your memories of love shall see you home. Oh, perhaps love is like a window, perhaps an open door. It invites you to come closer. It wants to show you more. And even if you lose yourself and don't know what to do, your memories of love shall see you through. Our love to some is like a cloud, to some as strong as steel, to some a way of living, some a way to feel, And some say love it's holding on, some say letting go. Some say love it's everything, some say they don't know. Perhaps love, it's like the ocean, nature's magnificent campaign. And it's fire when it's cold outside, thunder when it rains. But if I should live forever and all my dreams come true, my memories of love shall be of you. Ah, love to some is like a cloud, to some as strong as steel, to some a way of living, some a way to feel. And some say love it's holding on, some say letting go, and some say love it's everything, some say they don't know. Perhaps love it's like the ocean, nature's magnificent campaign. And it's fire when it's cold outside, it's thunder when it rains. But if I should live forever and all my dreams come true, my memories of love shall be of you. If I should live forever and all my dreams come true, my memories of love shall be of you.
Hi everyone. So when I was sitting down there and my Uncle Reed was recounting my dad's story of fishing, I actually just thought about something that I wanted to share. We were in Florida and I had just met this new friend and I caught a catfish, maybe about yay big, scared the crap out of me. And I went over and I went to the balcony, which is only about two stories up or somewhat, and I said, "Grandma, I caught a fish, 6 stories up?" Something like that. It was a long time ago. And I told her that I caught a fish, but I said I could not get it off the line. So she said, "Okay, I'll be down there in a second." I said, "Fantastic." So she comes down with a bag and a meat tenderizer. And I don't know if I should continue the story, but she got it off the line and I got to continue fishing. That was Grandma. Always knew how to take care of a situation. So I want to thank everybody for being able to come and commemorate my grandma. It was so good. She had such a long and special life. She was loved and appreciated by so many people. I can't begin to describe how many people referred to her as Grandma. She holds a very significant place in so many of our lives. I can still remember when I was growing up, she was always very supportive, kind, and witty with many, many jokes. I will always remember the oatmeal cookies, which I'm sure you'll hear on several accounts. There was a designated jar. I remember baking them with her, and she always had a little stash that I only found out when I was older, but it was in a plastic bag under the counter. I guess she, for many years, only had access to them herself. That was the thing with Grandma. She was always so cheerful and warm-hearted, always had her wits about her. Even a day before her passing, I was on the phone with her, and she was cracking jokes. I want to say that a life of 93 years definitely welcomes a celebration, amongst the unfortunate nature of the event. Grandma, I love you, and I'm so thankful for all the memories that will last forever.
You've heard tributes to Aunt Gert from her sons Richard and John, her niece Carolyn, my mother, and grandson Adam. John's son in Uganda, John Jr. Olu, 11 years old, has also sent a message that I'll now read to you. Allow me to convey my heartfelt condolences to my family for the loss of my dear grandmum. The news of the death shocked me deeply, as was not expected. I will ever miss the good moment with playing with the balloons, the dancing moment, the laughters and hugs. But we believe that she has left us now, and one day we will join her in joy. My deep felt sympathy goes to Dad, John Olew, Uncle Henry, Uncle Richard, Uncle Dave, and cousins. May the Lord God console all of you and make you strong. And Grandmum rest in peace until we meet again. Since Aunt Gert's death, the family have received so many moving responses from those who could not be here to give their respects and share their memories, to celebrate a life well lived. I'd like to share some of their memories with you of her warmth and smile, her famous cookies, and her sense of humor. And we would welcome you all to add any messages of your own in the visitor's book at the later reception. One of the first things people commented on was Aunt Gert's warmth and kindness, welcoming people into her home and into her heart. Ronnie Hankins remembered the first time he met her at family gathering. On greeting her, he said, she gave me a hug and a smile and welcomed me to the family. Frank Matuvu remembered her with a great and welcoming smile. And Linda MacLeod said that she always made me feel welcomed and loved with a kindness unlike any other. What I miss most, said Chuck MacLeod, is the love I felt as soon as she greeted us at the door. She had an amazing smile that always made it feel like home. When I close my eyes and think of Aunt Gert, I always think of that smile. The welcoming generosity and love was wherever she was, up here in Orillia in Toronto, as well as her winter home in St. Pete's in Florida. For us, nieces and nephews of both generations, it was always an adventure to visit her, and we would go out looking for seashells and sea glass, shark's teeth, and starfish. As you have heard in the earlier tributes, and most recently by Adam, and as seen in the photos scattered around in the reception later, many of family and friends' favorite moments with Aunt Gert involved an appreciation of her food and drink. Her warmth and caring was immediately noticed by the wonderful and tasty aromas as we entered the house, shared the Maharshan family. To this day, we have not tasted a better blueberry pie and oatmeal cookies anywhere. My own memories of Aunt Gert are when she used to pick me up from school. We used to sing along to Glenn Miller's Chattanooga Choo Choo and String of Pearls on the way home before having afternoon tea with the special teacups, starting my love of Earl Grey tea, and one of her famous oatmeal cookies. Aunt Gert's oatmeal cookies feature a lot in the Bon Vivre family's memories. Ellie has kindly made some of the cookies using Aunt Gert's recipe to share with you all, capturing some of the love Aunt Gert always put into her baking. There is even going to be her cookie jar, Aunt Gert's well-loved and now famous blue stoneware cookie jar, so feel free to put your hand into the cookie jar and get one of her famous oatmeal cookies. Aunt Gert has always had a great sense of humor. Billy Neeson remembered that when they were visiting and had just finished lunch, John offered a cookie. Aunt Gert immediately replied, "Who are you calling a cookie?" She found hilariously funny the words lasagna and burple. Not a word, but feel free to use it. And particularly the BBC Walk on the Wild Side show of talking animals. The clip, Alan, 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 Steve, had her in stitches every time she watched it. I'm going to finish by reading out Chris MacLeod's message, her great-nephew in Florida. I only have memories of her smiling and kidding around. She was always encouraging to me or the other grandkids. She was the coolest. I don't think Aunt Gert ever got us in trouble. She found us kids up to no good sometimes, but she had our backs though. She'd tell us to knock it off and get going, but she'd cover for us. If I was to say something for her, I'd say this. To believe is to know that every day is a new beginning, is to trust that miracles happen. To believe is to see angels dancing among the clouds, to know the wonder of a stardust sky. To believe is to know the value of a nurturing heart and the beauty of an aging hand, for it is through her teachings we learn to love. To believe is to find the strength and courage that lies within us when it's time to pick up the pieces and begin again. To believe is to know that life is a gift. I believe that Aunt Gert has just received that gift of a new life, somewhere a little better than here. So I'm happy for her. I loved knowing her in this life, and I can't wait to see her again in the next. I know she'll be waiting for us all. Meanwhile, I'm picturing Gert, Shawneen, and Pauline finding a cool new lake house to get ready for us all once we meet up again.
A reading from the Gospel of St. John. Jesus appears to 7 disciples. After these things, Jesus showed himself again to the disciples by the Sea of Tiberias, and he showed himself in this way. Gathered there together were Simon Peter, Thomas, called the Twin, Nathanael of Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and 2 others of his disciples. Simon Peter said to them, "I'm going fishing." They said to him, "We will go with you." They went out and got into the boat, but that night they caught nothing. Just after daybreak, Jesus stood on the beach, but the disciples did not know that it was Jesus. Jesus said to them, "Children, you have no fish, have you?" They answered him, "No." He said to them, "Cast the net to the right side of the boat, and you will find some." So they cast it, and now they were not able to haul it in because there were so many fish. That disciple whom Jesus loved said to Peter, "It is the Lord." When Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, he put on some clothes, for he was naked, and jumped into the sea. But the other disciples came in the boat, dragging the net full of fish, for they were not far from the land, only about 100 yards off. When they had gone ashore, they saw a charcoal fire there with fish on it and bread. Jesus said to them, "Bring some of the fish that you have just caught." So Simon Peter went aboard and hauled the net ashore full of large fish, 153 of them. And though there were so many, the net was not torn. Jesus said to them, "Come and have breakfast." Now none of the disciples dared to ask him, "Who are you?" because they knew it was the Lord. Jesus came and took the bread and gave it to them and did the same with the fish. This was now the 3rd time that Jesus appeared to the disciples after he was raised from the dead.
As a former army chaplain with the British Forces, I've enjoyed the admiring look when strangers are informed that I've served abroad on operational tours, the likes of Bosnia, Iraq, Afghanistan. "Ah, you'll have lived dangerously," they will remark. My response is normally a knowing nod, a silent response with a faraway look, allowing them time to imagine, dwell upon TV news footage of war and destruction. I'm more than happy to have that particular myth supported. It gives me street cred with Gert's relatives. Yet, if the truth be known, far more scary was an incident which I would consider one of my 9 lives used up. It was an occasion when I came very close to meeting my Maker and Creator, and well before I wanted to. Such a moment came on a car journey in Orillia with Aunt Gert at the wheel. The trauma of that episode I had buried, but it came flooding back to me as I was preparing for today. We had been taking Pauline back to her care home at Victoria House. No doubt the talk between the sisters was of their life shared as harbour girls on Georgian Bay. Anyway, momentarily, Gert's focus was elsewhere, and not on the car we were in danger of driving into. I'm pretty sure I interrupted the flow of their conversation. I gave a loud, commanding, "No! There's a car behind us." The collision was happily, but only narrowly, avoided. My heart was thumping. I was a whimpering, nervous wreck in the back of the car. Gert, unflappable. She often appeared cheerfully unfazed by it all, as with most things in her life. She drove on, and we continued back home. Since Gert's death, many of us will have been trawling through family albums. John has shown us some wonderful black and white photos, standing as bride with fetchy tiara alongside new husband George and a splendid 3-tiered wedding cake. All with them sipping drinks with straws, looking glam, and on occasion sporting bouffant hairstyles, a look of the 50s and 60s fashion. A lot of them have her seated in restaurants, many a time wearing a distinctive blue dress or sweater. Whatever the era, the photo taken colored or black and white, she conveys style, elegance, and the smile and twinkle in her eyes. But one surprising image in the MacLeod family album was to find her in the front row of our wedding photograph. Surprising, because our 2 mothers, Marion and Sheila, and you'd be very foolish to mess with either of them, they both are banished to the back row, whereas Gert is standing alongside the bridal couple. Just how did she manage that, I wondered. Unlike many of the dominant, in-your-face, strongly opinionated, powerful ladies that I have loved and lived amongst, Gert never, to my experience, had that abrasive, pushing herself forward approach. She didn't feel the need for forceful opinion and would far rather diffuse a controversy than add to the fuel of disagreement. So how did she end up in the front row? And then I realized it was Aunt Gert's wedding dress that Carolyn had inherited and was wearing so elegantly at our Toronto wedding. We have lovely photos of Gert with Carolyn and young Skye preparing themselves in the morning of the wedding. Gert is the rock of calm, helping to keep their nerves in check. She's keeping up the morale of the troops. But the loan of the dress was not the only significant contribution she made to our wedding. It was her Toronto home that was used for our reception in North York, and it was her Orillia Lakeside home that was the venue for our honeymoon. Given her amazing, bountiful generosity and kindness, it's little wonder she was pictured in the front row. No one else was so qualified and deserving to be there. Although I met Gert later in life, I was still impressed at how active she was. At I think age 75, John informed me she was hitting a hole-in-one on the golf course. I certainly played golf with her and Pauline and Bob, and attended with her an organ recital in Aurelia's church. She would be the first to recognize and admire the dexterity of our organist Marshall today and the great sounds from his famous church organ. I picture Gert dancing with my dad at our wedding in the basement. Her zest, her fun-loving nature clearly appealed to my old man, and both of them strutting their stuff on the dance floor was an abiding image of our two families coming together in celebration and embracing new friendships. There was also a happy trip she made with Marion to Scotland, and they